Chapter 7. Men Solve Problems. Video Games Solve Men. According to John Gray, author of Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, men and women are psychologically wired in different ways. Men are wired to solve problems, and women are wired to emote and be heard. These fundamental differences are so pronounced that, metaphorically speaking, men and women appear to be from completely different planets. Men watch football because it makes them feel like they are solving problems. A man can sit for hours of a Sunday or Monday watching football without speaking. Even with his friends around, the men will sit in silence and watch the ball or the puck or the basketball move around on the screen. The men's brains are watching the ball move around, and they are, 1, in a state of nothingness, thinking of nothing and doing nothing. They are certainly saying very little, and they are okay with that. And 2, feeling as though they are solving problems. It's important to note that the men are explicitly not speaking, they are not emoting, and they are usually not conversing. They are quiet, mesmerized by the screen and solving problems in their minds. The men are not talking while fixing up an old classic car in the garage. They are not talking if they are starting a rock band in the garage, and they are not talking if they are building a deck. The men are solving problems. The men are not talking. The first rule of Fight Club is, you don't talk about Fight Club. Chuck Palahniuk, Fight Club. In Fight Club, the first rule of Fight Club is that you don't talk about Fight Club. What could be more manly than not talking about a secret club in a bar basement where men beat each other up until someone says stop or goes limp? Fight Club caught part of the essence of what it means to be a man, and the story, the book, and the movie resonated with men everywhere. Part of the key to this resonance is that the men do not talk. The Fight Club is men only, and no one talks about it. If women were allowed in Fight Club would be talked about because women love to talk, emote, and gossip. Men silently solve problems. Women want to talk about problems and not necessarily solve them, but they want to be heard and understood. People used to look out on the playground and say that the boys were playing soccer and the girls were doing nothing. But the girls weren't doing nothing. They were talking about the world to one another. And they became very expert about that in a way the boys did not. This is a masculine and feminine opposite, and part of what makes men and women struggle to understand each other. It's also what makes the opposite sex so attractive, alluring, and arousing. The otherness, the polarity, with masculinity being defined as that which is least feminine and femininity being that which is least masculine. It's sexy, it's frustrating, it's attractive, and it works in a functional, dysfunctional way. Watching sports stimulates the man's need to solve problems. Video games do the same. I read several studies on how old is the average gamer and how much time does a man spend per week playing video games. The answers may shock you. The average gamer is around 30 years old and spends anywhere from 6 to 18 hours a week playing video games. Think about that for a moment. 18 hours a week is pretty much one entire day per week of consciousness. Assuming you sleep for 8 hours a night, a man has 112 hours of consciousness in a 7-day week with 8 hours a night of sleep. If he works 40 hours a week, that leaves him with 72 hours left in the week. If he plays video games for 18 hours of the remaining 72 hours, that is roughly 25% of his non-working time. We didn't add in commuting time, eating time, talking to his spouse or girlfriend, etc. So why are video games so significant and so powerful for men in today's world? As a 31-year-old semi-serious gamer myself, I can say I have experienced the instant gratification that video games provide. So many important things in life take 10,000 hours of focused effort to accomplish a degree of mastery. 10,000 hours is a serious investment and a barrier to entry for real achievement in life. In video games, The games are designed for instant gratification instead. You play the game for a few minutes or a few seconds, you achieve something, and the dopamine hits your brain. Some ingenious games like World of Warcraft, which is arguably the first virtual reality world ever invented for the mass market, was released on November 23, 2004. As of October 2016, World of Warcraft had over 10 million subscribers. That's a 12-year lifespan of the game, with 10 million people still paying. At about $14.99 a month for a subscription that works out to $179.88 as annual cost for a hobby that provides so many hours of entertainment. But what is the real cost? As a former World of Warcraft player and player of several video games my entire life from age 4 to age 31 at the time of writing, I can say the real cost is the cost on your time. Let's say you're worth $20 an hour at your job, which is a median salary in my home country, and you play your video games 72 hours a month. That works out to $1,440 in lost opportunity cost per month. Annually, that is $17,280 per year, which is essentially a part-time job. In my early 20s, I secretly wanted to be a pro gamer, but when the hours required to invest started to reach part-time and full-time employment hours, I quit pursuing video games as a serious hobby and now only play them occasionally. The real cost is the cost of your time and the unmanly pursuit of taking you away from your real-life purpose and pursuit of your highest and greatest self. Whenever I have done something great or have gone to the next level in my life, I have uninstalled and deleted all my games. The mind does not need distractions to go forward and achieve greatness in your life. Women intuitively don't like it when their men play video games, because as intuitive sacred beings, women know deep down inside that video games distract a man from his purpose and his potential. In the eyes of a woman, a man who is not working on reaching his potential and living his purpose, which is generally his work, is unmanly and unattractive. If a man loses his purpose, he will lose his woman. She will simply find another man who is taking his purpose more seriously. This is the law of the jungle and biology. Games like World of Warcraft are purposely engineered to time the dopamine hits first in small frequent intervals at the beginning of the game until you are hooked, and then the dopamine and feeling of achievement becomes exponentially spaced out into longer and longer intervals. When the dopamine hits start to take longer, the sunk cost fallacy takes over, and you say to yourself, "I can't quit now. I've spent 50 days of my life on this. I have to keep going." Again, when the time gaming turns into time you could spend on a part-time job or pursuing a real passion or starting your dream business or vocation, these large investments of time into frivolous pleasure can ruin a man permanently over time. Women's brains are wired differently from men's, and they do not respond to football and video games in the same way. Statistically speaking, in today's world, women and men play video games in equal amounts. But women play different kinds of games. They typically are less hardcore gamers, and I believe they play more for the social aspect and for novelty than to satisfy the inherent brain need obsession that men have to solve problems and not talk. Women have an inherent need to talk, be listened to, and be heard. They want to talk to their men and have their men listen to the emoting, but they explicitly do not want their problems solved by suggestions from their man. Instead, they just want to be listened to and emotionally understood. This can be frustrating for men who want to solve every problem in front of their faces like a puzzle addict, chess master, or crossword puzzle fanatic. To men, they are a hammer, and every problem is a nail that must be whacked down. Women just want to talk about the nail and how they feel about it. Men want to whack the nail. This is a cause of friction. Here are some worthwhile endeavors that can be traded for a video game addiction. Note: All of these endeavors take serious amounts of time to master, whereas a video game will take nearly 5% of the time to master as a worthwhile endeavor noted below. A list of worthwhile endeavors and the time commitment. 1. Building a business takes 2, 5, and 10 years. This business may take 10,000 hours to master, and 90% of businesses fail in the first 5 years. 90% of the surviving businesses fail in the second 5 years. This leaves 1% of businesses surviving after 10 years. Welcome to the jungle. With such horrible odds, you can see why a young man would just go for the instant pleasure of a video game and say, fuck it, to a real-world endeavor like building a business. 2. Becoming a master at an art form like music or painting with oil paints takes 10 years and 10,000 hours of practice. Again, the most complex video games take roughly 5% of that time to master. The long learning curve and delayed gratification make most men want to go for an easier route. Recently in Japan, the turntables as an instrument for DJing now outsell the electric guitar. The easier it is to learn, the more people will be attracted to it. The turntables are not really an instrument in the same way a guitar is, but over time everything degrades down to the lowest common denominator and the lowest levels of intelligence. In medieval Europe, the Spanish guitar took over from the lute, which was harder to play. This has been going on throughout history. The easier the instrument, the more people will play them. 3. Becoming an athlete takes 10 years and 10,000 hours to become a master. Plus, becoming an athlete forces you to face reality, face your weaknesses, and play on your strengths. Men who do well in athletics usually do well in business because both endeavors are grounded in reality and require daily rituals and activities for success over time. Athletics brings real physical pain, muscles aching, hearts and lungs burning, and the psychological pain of fighting against your own weakness. Dealing with teams and other men is manly, but it hurts physically and psychologically with winning, losing, and hitting or not hitting your goals. Men today favor the non-physical over the physical simply because it doesn't hurt. One argument is that men are evolving to a higher level of sophistication by doing less physical things, and that argument may be sound in some ways. But the counter-argument is that the lack of physical exertion in the modern man's life invites various diseases and later health problems for men. The body is like anything else. Use it or lose it, abuse it, and lose it. 4. To reach the highest levels in World of Warcraft takes only 600 hours, not 10,000, which is 25 days of straight gameplay at 24 hours a day. A man who plays 18 hours a day will get to a nearly in-game level of play in only 33 weeks. Some men are afraid to make a big investment of 10 years or 10,000 hours. It's daunting and it's scary. But the question is, how do you eat an elephant, one bite at a time? I love the words of Earl Nightingale on pursing big goals. Don't worry about the time shall pass anyway. Also, Napoleon Bonaparte said, "Death is nothing, but to live defeated and inglorious is to die daily." What does it mean to be alive if you do not reach for the things that you really want, regardless of cost or the size of the investment? God gave you big dreams and big goals because when you were designed, He was measuring your spirit, not your wallet. We all have 24 hours in a day. Donald Trump, the billionaire and U.S. president, has 24 hours in a day, and so does the bum on the street. The difference is, how do we use those 24 hours in a day? For purpose or for distraction? 33 weeks to master a video game versus 555.55 weeks to master a real endeavor like sports, music, the arts, or business. Looking at the costs of becoming great in your real passions and real purposes in life, shows that it's no wonder that video games are so popular in distracting men from their real purpose and work in life. 1. Games give the illusion to men of solving problems, which is very attractive to the male mind. 2. Games give an instant hit of dopamine on timed intervals to create the illusion of fun. I can guarantee that our warrior ancestors didn't think about fun or happiness often. They seldom had fun or happy moments, but in reality, life can be grim, brutal, and hard. Our brains can't compete with strategically timed dopamine hits of addictive games, like addictive drugs. Our brains get hooked on to which we can't say no. 3. The time costs of a real passion or endeavor will take nearly 10 years of real work, effort, blood, sweat, tears, time, money, and losses to achieve. This is a significant investment, and the reason why so many men never reach greatness in their lives is that they are unwilling to invest enough to get there. If a worthy endeavor such as business, sports, art, music, or anything else takes 555.55 weeks to master, which is 10,000 hours divided by 18 hours a week, this gives us 555.55 weeks to become great at a real passion. A long game like World of Warcraft, however, only takes 33 weeks of less challenging work to reach the end game, which is 5.9% of the investment. This makes rational sense why the men of today choose video games over real work. A study some years ago with children was conducted and found to be one of the greatest indicators of success in young boys and girls. This test was called the marshmallow test. Little children were placed in a room who were 4 years old or so. These children were given a marshmallow on a plate and told that if they left the marshmallow alone and did not eat it until the researcher left the room and came back sometime later, the child was promised 2 marshmallows as a reward. The only challenge was, the little boy or girl had to wait alone in the room with temptation itself. 1 delicious marshmallow. Some children gobbled up the marshmallow as soon as the researcher left the room. Other children would sing, shut their eyes, look away, lie down, and avoid the marshmallow altogether to double down and gain on their investment. The children who were found to be the greatest successes as they were tracked through life were the children who had the self-discipline to avoid eating the marshmallow. On the other hand, the children who gobbled up the marshmallow in seconds were followed through life and found to not reach the same levels of success as the children who were able to defer gratification. Deferring gratification is a major part of being an effective man. Never before has a farmer gone to his field, planted his seed, woken up the next day, and looked out the window and said, "I don't see any crops, must be a scam." Farmers are some of the toughest men around, and they know that farming takes time. Farming goes through seasons and cycles. Farming does not happen overnight, and the discipline that we used to have to till the barren soil has become lost over time as technology and civilization offer us easier and easier gratification to feel instantly happy with our problem-solving abilities. Again, I will reiterate that video games are an illusion, a distraction from your true purpose. Just like football on Sunday or beer and chicken wings on a Tuesday. Women don't like it when men put these activates before their purpose or do these activities too frequently. Women intuitively know by using their sacred feminine energy that a man, a real man, a strong man, must be working on his purpose every day to be masculine and attractive to her, to ensure her survival, survival of the tribe, and survival of her children. Show me your friends, and I'll show you your future. Proverb video games do not serve a man's purpose, and in that way, they are unmanly. You can play them just as you can drink alcohol or smoke pot to a degree. But if done too much, they can be highly destructive and can wipe decades out of a man's life that will be lost forever. Remember, You can always get money back, but you can never get your number one resource in your life back: your time. Women know this intuitively. Listen to the women on this one and stick with your purpose or your passion. Do not be afraid to invest more than others and hit the 10,000 hours of investment head on in full force. 10 years from now, you will thank me if you stick with this piece of advice. I have reached 10,000 hours in several endeavors, and it has made all the difference in my life, my purpose, my passion, and my results. Stay hungry, stay curious. Curiosity is the base ingredient for passion, and passion is the path to purpose. Stay curious, my friend.